I'm your Jesus-loving and potty host, L.A. Sprague. Welcome to Christians with Chronic Illnesses. Why, hello there. You listening? How's it going? Really? How are you? I want to know. You doing good? You doing bad? You like somewhere in between, neither here nor there? I don't know. Are you suffering? Are you like really happy about something? Whatever's going on. How's it going? I'd love to know. Feel free to comment or email us at cwcipodcast@gmail.com or hear me out. Join one of our Christians with Chronic Illnesses support groups. We have Facebook and Discord, and it'd be cool if you came and chatted and stuck around. Anyway, hi, I'm L.A. Sprague. I'm your host of Christians with Chronic Illnesses, and happy to be here, happy to be recording today. To be completely transparent with you, it's been a really rough day physically. It is like, I think my husband said like 110 here. Like it feels like 110. It's like 96 feels like 110 or whatever. Listen, where we're at, that humidity, it don't play. We get like the cold of the winter, like unbearably -30, like chills, whatever it's called, chills from what winds from the lake. And in the summer, we get swamp like humidity. Hold on, I gotta plug in my laptop. Back to the show, Karen. Okay, I feel like the way my hair looks, I look like I'm in like a early 2000s like emo phase. Like, hold on. We got this. Pull hair out. It's not working. It's not a phase, Mom. Anyway, okay, let me fix this. This is crazy. Anyway, what I was saying is we also get like swamp-like temperature up here. I don't know. It's just bad. Like the humidity and everything is crazy. So yeah, but I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be sitting here with you recording, knowing that today for you, you'll be listening to this. For some reason, you have chosen to spend your precious, limited time on earth and spending it with me. Thank you. I honor that. I appreciate that. Anyway, so welcome to Christians with Chronic Illnesses. If you're from around here, I'm happy that you're back. If you're new, how this works is every other week. One time, I interview Christians, and then the other time, I do the halftime show, which is talking about anything relating to chronic illness, Christianity, and my story. So this is a halftime show. Happy you're here. All right, so I'm doing something a little new with the halftime show and kind of sharing a little bit more about my story personally. So if you haven't listened to the previous halftime show, which should be 2 episodes before this one, I highly recommend you go listen to that first. It has to do a bit with my Pentecostal upbringing and how I feel like that personally affected my health in mostly negative ways, but there were positive ones as well. Do not get me wrong. So today I wanted to expand a little bit more on some of the kind of, in my opinion, Pentecostal theology that I was raised with and how that affected my life drastically. Like it really was like changed my life and really, yeah, just the things I was taught, for better, for worse, or for both, like it really led the way I lived, because I have always been a pretty like devout Christian, and that's not to like toot my own horn. That's not anything like that. I think we're all born with like different passions, different convictions, and those play out in our life in various ways in different stages of our life. And so especially during my high school and college years, yeah, I think Pentecostal theology really drove the way that I was living. So gotta kick my feet up here because it is a struggle bus today. Anyway, Yeah, so if you're sticking around and you're like, why am I listening to your story? What does this have to do with chronic illness? Trust me, I hear you. And believe me that it does have to do with chronic illness. I'm L.A. Sprague and I have POTS and depression. And Pentecostal theology really impacted the way that I handled those things and also the kind of, again, trajectory of my life. And then when I was diagnosed with chronic illnesses, how my life changed. And it's just wild. So anyway, enough preface. Let's get to it. So, okay, one more thing before we dive in. If you are chronically ill, no, what? I mean, yes, if you're chronically ill, you're welcome here. If you're Pentecostal, if you're charismatic, if you don't know what those words mean, I want you to know that you are welcome here, you are loved here, and we might have differing theological opinions and takes, but I want you to know that this is not a criticism or an attack against you as a person. This is just my personal experience and how my upbringing in mostly Pentecostal circles and churches impacted my life, somewhat for the positive, somewhat for the negative, and then how my life changed drastically after being diagnosed with chronic illness. So please stick around if you're chronically ill and you are charismatic. You are more than welcome here. Okay, finally, moving on. So I wanted to start by addressing something I had briefly mentioned last week called confirmation. And if you grew up Lutheran or Catholic, I think Catholics, you guys have confirmation, right? Let me know in the comments. You might have this idea of maybe it's like a set of classes or some sort of ritual or sacrament. I don't really know that you do to kind of like confirm your faith. Confirmation, right? Well, in Pentecostal circles, at least in my upbringing, confirmation was essentially the idea that God will speak to you, and if something you're hearing is truly from God, it will be confirmed 3 times. So that could be maybe you see a scripture 3 times over again, whether it's like, oh, I saw John 3:16 once at church. I saw John 3:16 on my Bible app, and then my friend quoted John 3:16 to me at Bible study. Like, that's known as like confirmation. Or let's say you ask God for some sort of bizarre random sign, whatever you can think of. So I'm sitting by my goldfish right now. His name is Gordon. He's so cute. Anyway, but let's say I said, all right, God, like I want to, start a podcast for Christians with chronic illnesses. If you want me to do that, could you send me 3 confirmations in the sign of a goldfish? And maybe it's, oh, wow, I didn't even realize I was praying right next to my goldfish. And when I opened my eyes, my goldfish was there. Oh, my goodness. I saw a traffic sign, one that said gold, and then the other that said fish. And then, oh my goodness, you'll never guess what was on sale in my Walmart app today. Goldfish. And then it's like this confirmation of, okay, so I saw 3 different goldfish in 3 different ways. And so that is God's confirmation to me 3 different times that I'm supposed to do the podcast, right? That is the idea of confirmation, at least as I understand it. If you have a better understanding of the history of the theology of confirmation, if you have a better explanation, feel more than free to leave that in the comments below. But as for me, growing up in the Pentecostal circle, this is what it meant. And so there was a lot of I think comfort and mystery and beauty in that, because it was man, God is so deeply involved in our lives, person to person, Holy Spirit, right? Most Christian denominations, if not all of them, believe that you have the Holy Spirit, that is God the Spirit, living inside of you. You are His temple, and you are in an intimate relationship with Him, closer than any relationship that you have. And He loves you personally, and He wants to know you personally and will speak to you directly, right? And so there's kind of this hope of whoa, I can know my calling, right? This calling, the idea that God has this one set destination or this one set plan or calling for you to go and fulfill for his mission, for his glory. And if you're confused on what that is, that's okay, right? That's natural. How you solve that issue is you can ask God for 3 confirmations of what he wants you to do, and he'll give them to you. Or if he doesn't, right, maybe he won't. Maybe if I had asked God for 3 confirmations for goldfish, and I got close and saw a traffic sign or whatever that said gold, but not fish, then it's like, maybe that's not, maybe God doesn't want me to start the podcast. But yeah, so there's just like a hope in that you can ask God and he promises to answer you. And the way that you know he's answering you is in this very specific way of confirmation, of signs, of patterns of 3. And the most powerful patterns and confirmations of 3, again, at least as I was taught, are through scripture. So I was 15 years old and I knew nothing about, trigger warning, I'm going to talk about probably some deeper, more violent terms, possibly stories. So be warned and use your discretion, especially if you have children around. Anyway, so I was given this book by a friend of mine who I considered to be a mentor called Killing Christians by Tom Doyle. And this book, by the way, chef's kiss. I mean, I haven't read it in 11 years, but at the time when I was 15, fabulous. And I even got to talk to the author on the phone one time. Anyway, that's a whole story. But I was given this book, and it's a story of like 8 different stories of Christians who are essentially martyred, being like killed for their beliefs or even tortured in really brutal, graphic ways. And I did not know that existed. I don't know how. I literally grew up in the church, and I don't know if I was just like blind to it. I don't know what, but I had no idea that like martyrdom still happens. Like Christians are still killed for their faith. And I would just like to take this moment to say that it's also not just Christians, and I'm not saying that to dismiss Christians that are killed for their faith at all, but many people. Martyrdom happens for Muslims. Martyrdom happens for queers, right? There are many people that die for what they believe in. And to me, because I am a Christian and was a Christian, it was so like hit very close to home. And I know it just like really, I was sucked into that book, dude. I read that thing like all the time. And I remember it was just like different cities, different countries, different stories and individuals. And one day I was just reading this book and my eyes stopped on the name of this city. And thank you so much for spending your precious time with Christians with Chronic Illnesses. Your support means more to us than we can even describe. If you have a desire to donate or join a subscription for Christians with Chronic Illnesses, please see links in the show notes below. Let's just say that city was ancient Nineveh. The modern day city was ancient Nineveh, if that makes sense. Like quite literally, geographically. Anyway, I'm not going to spell that out for you any more than it needs to be, in case things change in the future and I get to go. But anyway, my eyes just stopped on this city name, and I just felt this like urge, like this prompting of you need to go there. And I immediately stopped. I remember I was literally like in this rocking chair in like the corner of my living room. I think I immediately texted or called my mentor who gave me the book and was like, hey, I think God is telling me to go to this city. And she was like, I think you should pray about that, which is a wise response, telling me to pray about it. Very wise. And I don't know if she had told me to ask for confirmations or if like I personally chose to ask for confirmations. I don't know. It was a big deal because again, I'm literally reading about these Christians that were martyred for their faith in these cities. And so at the time, at least, when ISIS was really rampant, and I really hope I don't get banned for saying their name, it was really dangerous, especially in this particular city. Actually, half of the city had been taken over by that group. And a little 15-year-old me felt called to go. And by the way, was fully willing. And I'm just getting emotional about it right now. So I however it went, I asked for confirmations, or I just saw them, I don't know. I had 3 confirmations, or at least what I believed at the time to be 3 confirmations that God was calling me to go. One of those was that at the time there was this revival in our area, and I went to the revival, and the pastor preached on Acts 9, maybe 8, where Philip runs up to the Ethiopian eunuch, and the Ethiopian eunuch is like, hey, so Philip is like, hey, do you understand what you're reading? And the dude's like, no, how could I? And the Philip's like, I got you, brother. But here's the cool thing is, like, in the story, Philip had to run to the chariot. And in the sermon message, the pastor said, if you feel like God is calling you to do something, run to it. Like, don't hesitate. Don't wait. You know what I'm saying? He was saying, run, and not run away, but like, get that goal, right? Do that thing. And to me, I was absolutely, like, my world felt like it was changed. Absolutely just flipped upside down. And I think I went with my mentor to that, and I think we might have talked about it on the way home, but neither here nor there. That was one, and to me that was huge. Another one, the second, was there was an Arabic language learning program. I think I had looked up because I was thinking, okay, if I'm called to go to this place, this country speaks Arabic, so let me go on ahead and, see about learning the language. So there was this certain, I don't know if it was like Blue and White or whatever, some Arabic learning like curriculum online. And I was like, cool, looked at that a little bit, looked interesting. And then probably a few hours later, I got on Facebook, and that same Arabic learning platform was on my Facebook. And I was like, oh my word. Like, I thought that was the second confirmation, because at this time in 2015, maybe other people knew, I don't think the algorithm was commonly known about. And now it's like joked about. There's a whole amazing documentary on it called The Social Dilemma. Highly recommend that you go to watch that. I think it's on Netflix, but fabulous. But we didn't know that. And so to me, it was like, oh my goodness, what are the chances that this Arabic site that I've never seen before on my Facebook showed up on my Facebook? And so for me, that was the second confirmation. And then the third confirmation had to do with scripture. So back up a little bit in time, I was at my church. They had these different random cards that had different verses on them. And actually looking back, I'm willing to bet that was probably like, a lot of churches will have like missionaries. And so I'm willing to bet that actually might have been a segment for the missionaries. But essentially, I chose one of these random cards, and at the bottom had 4 different verses. And one of them was Isaiah 61 1. Man, it's been a while. This used to be like every part of my life. I had everything memorized. And I didn't know, like, there was nothing special about the verse that really stuck out to me at the time. But I really felt like called and urged to memorize this. So, long story short, I memorized the verse. Oh, I get this book from my mentor about martyrdom. I feel like I'm called to go. I get the first confirmation by the preacher, the second confirmation by the Arabic learning app, and the third confirmation happened when that verse that I randomly felt led to memorize showed up later in the book that I was reading about martyred Christians. And the exact same verse was quoted. And it was different, like it was the New Testament version of the Old Testament verse that I had memorized, which is where Jesus is like, the Lord has anointed me to preach good news to the poor, to bring sight to the blind and freedom for the captives, and that whole verse. And then Jesus preaches it in his lifetime in Luke. And I was blown away. I remember this was the moment that I dedicated my life to being a missionary overseas. And from 15 years old all the way up to maybe a few years ago, maybe now, I don't know, I absolutely believed without a single doubt, guys, without literally like people would try to be like, oh, maybe you're gonna like get married and want to stay in the United States. Maybe, God, he has people here that you can witness to and minister to here in the US, right? Who says you need to go be a missionary when there are literally people, of those countries here? And oh, well, like, you just have to have an open mind. You have an open hand, and all those people were right, by the way, about all of those things. But I was so incredibly convinced that I had gotten confirmation from God himself at this specific city that I was supposed to go to. And so the way that this really impacted my life was almost immediately I started investing my life in this like full plunge, guys. Literally, like, I went to a perspectives course, which I interviewed a girl named Lucy earlier in Christians with Chronic Illnesses. She has lupus, and I highly recommend you go listen to that. And then also Lindsay, I interview her as well. Both of them have a bit to do with perspectives and different ministries of the sort. And anyway, so I immediately go to perspectives class, which teaches you about God's global mission for the whole world. It's essentially like education mobilization to send missionaries, essentially, right? And it's really cool. I mean, it's interesting what they teach for sure. And at the time I was extremely passionate. It really changed my life. I can't emphasize enough, like, being a missionary was essentially my identity for like 10 years. Seriously, it's all I would tell people all the time. It's like, I'm going to this country. I'm going to go teach English to go to this country, because that was like the way of getting in, right? Was like, oh, well, you can't go into this country because it's a closed country for like Christians or missionaries. And so you have to go in a sneaky way, like teaching English or something. So that's what I was going to do. Okay. I had it figured out, guys. But here's the thing is I genuinely didn't believe it was me. I genuinely, fully, like 100% was convinced that I was absolutely called to this country by the time I was 26. And I don't remember how that happened. It just, someone made a joke about like being 26 at school or something. And I was like, yes. So literally I started taking this like perspectives course, and I was the youngest person there. It was like, maybe like a Wednesday night group or something that I would go to at a church and just be taught about like the Bible and missions and God's plan throughout that, and these super thick books with like homework assignments. And guys, it was seriously like, I was so passionate about it. I remember being in choir class, dude. I'm so serious. Feeling so out of place in my high school that I was this little 15-year-old, but to me, age didn't matter. And all I wanted to do was go be in that country with those people at that moment. And I didn't care about being martyred. I didn't care. I was like, dude, like, that's so cool. Even more like, glory. I get to be under God's throne. I get to be like the closest to him in heaven, because there's this whole like idea that if you're martyred, then you'll be like under God's very throne when you die. And I don't know, it's this whole thing. And very cool, very awesome. And so I really didn't care about being tortured or even martyred, because first of all, it was like such a high calling. And it was like, if heaven is everything and we're this glimpse and whatever, then like, why not? And also like all the strength of Jesus with me to endure that. And also maybe these people will be in eternity. And to me, it was like, if I'm at the time, my theology was, if you don't believe in Jesus, you are going to eternal conscious torment. And in my thought process was, if I truly believe that, it is worth me being temporarily tortured and martyred on this earth for that person to potentially be saved from eternal conscious torment forever, apart from God and apart from me. That's where I was at. So I just remember even being in choir class, just like not wanting to be there, just wanting to already be 18, be overseas, be serving on the field. And so I took, perspectives courses, and there's some other conference I went to. I don't even remember, but it had a lot to do with missions. And then it was like, I downloaded this thing that was like, I think it was called iTalki or iTalki. Let me know if you ever like participated in that. And I think it was like some sort of language tutoring program, but I used it as a way to minister to Muslims. And it was just an easy way. Like, hey, you're teaching me Arabic. I'm teaching you English. Here's something about Jesus. Here's something about the church, So it was seriously such a huge part of who I was. And I know I keep saying that. I just can't emphasize it enough. So I ended up going to Moody Bible Institute because I'm not sure where they're at now, but when I went, they were extremely ministry minded and missions minded. And so the idea was they would give you tuition paid, studying if you would go be a minister or be a missionary, so that you don't have to fundraise as much money to go overseas. So I went to Moody Bible Institute to teach English to speakers of other languages. I had basically a weekly tutoring meeting, I guess, where I would go to a family's house, which, shout out to you guys. I love your family so much. If you are listening, love you guys. Miss you. I gotta come visit you. But anyway, I would go to their house every week to tutor, and they were also Muslim. And then, not only that, I, did an internship where I taught a bunch of Muslims English. And then I actually studied abroad in Jordan, a Middle Eastern country that is predominantly Muslim. And it was amazing, guys. I loved my time in Jordan. I was there for 4.5 months. I got pretty conversational in Arabic, maybe about I don't know, a kid, like a littler kid level, I guess. And I wanted to stay. I was 19 when I went, and I genuinely thought about not going back to the US. I thought about just staying. And it took so many people talking to me to convince me to go back and finish my degree. And I'm glad they did. But seriously, I loved it. And even to this day, I have dreams missing Jordan. I have dreams missing the Middle East because I don't know why. It just felt so right and felt like home to me, and like I was doing the right thing. And I don't know, take that as you will. Maybe it's a weird quirk. I don't know. Maybe it's my calling. Who knows? So the reason I say all of this, I graduate college, and I was set to live. And oh yeah, by the way, some of my later years in college, I lived in Little India to minister to my neighbors around me, again, who were a lot of Muslims who I felt particularly called to minister to. And so seriously, even graduating college right away, my hope was to stay in Little India and to continue to witness and minister and teach English and just be a light there. Well, this is where everything kind of comes crashing down, okay? I had begun experiencing POTS symptoms in 2021, maybe early 2022. And before that, I had an extreme major depressive episode, which I don't think I need to go into right now. But the POTS really hit a kind of point when I was at work at Family Dollar and as a cashier, and I almost passed out while standing there. trying to just cashier. So I go to the ER. They're like, hey, you need to go get this figured out. The ER can't figure out what's wrong. The doctor suggests it could be POTS. I talk to my boss. I'm like, hey, I need a stool. And he's like, we're not giving you a stool. Only pregnant women can use stools because it looks bad. So that was my first, I guess, confrontation, conflict with ableism. But onward and upward. So I was probably starting to wonder about things maybe as early as 2022 because I had also gone through a really, really hard time with major depressive disorder, and I had a really deep bout of deconstruction, and my whole world was just kind of in question. And essentially, as the years have gone on, I ended up having to leave Little India because I was like, what am I going to do? Like, I have to find a job that can accommodate my needs, like, right now, because I already signed the lease for this apartment. And there was a camp that was willing to hire, and they were willing to accommodate what I needed, and always happen, and for that I will always be grateful. And long story short, I never went back. I never went back to Little India. I mean, for visits, but like, I've stayed at the camp. And throughout the time, throughout, so emotional, gosh. Throughout the time of figuring it all out, I've just felt so lost. Because when you're convinced that you've heard from God himself that you're supposed to do something and you don't do it, that's not good. And that the reason I mentioned that city being ancient Nineveh is because one thing I really used to drill it into myself that I had to go was I was like, I cannot be a modern day Jonah. I cannot run to Tarshish or stay in the US. Like, I can't do that. I can't disrespect and disobey God, or else I'm going to be swallowed by a fish, whatever that looks like. And it's just been so confusing and devastating. And it feels like I've lost that dream. And I know if you're listening, many of you are probably thinking like, oh, I know that when I was more in the boat of like believing in confirmation, like I always, when I heard stories like this, I was like, you're just doubting God. You're not respecting God or honoring God or like believing in God enough that he'll take care of you if you go and obey him. Or, oh, maybe when you get overseas, he'll heal you. Or, maybe miraculously, like the medicine will just be provided, or maybe this and that and this and that. And it's just like, I understand if that's where you're coming from, because I used to be like that. I would hear stories of people saying, again, like being open-handed, like you have to be open-handed with your calling. You never know what God's going to do. And in my mind, it was always like, no, you just got comfortable in the United States because you wanted to. Like, you just wanted to get married here and have kids here and have a white picket fence. Not me. I'm so passionate about Jesus and his word that I'm willing to go be martyred and tortured for it as a young woman. Like, the potential worst things happening to me as a person did not deter me from this calling. And I was very harsh on other people who went through experiences and felt like their minds were changed or felt like maybe they heard wrong. I was so hard on them because in my mind, it was like, you were just disagreeing. But now, after kind of, moving from the city and coming to a place that understands or at least accepts my health journey, and I just don't feel that way anymore. And I have many thoughts. One is that I'm not sure where the teaching of confirmation comes from. And I'm not a theologian, I guess. I mean, Moody says everyone is, so. But I'm not your pastor. I'm not a spiritual leader. Please don't put me as a spiritual leader. I'm begging of you, don't do it. Don't do it. Okay. Anyway, like, I just don't see where that's coming from, personally. Like, in the Bible, where does that teaching come from? And I know that there are scriptures used for it. I'm sure of it. And it's kind of weird, I actually can't remember them right now, considering I grew up with that, but c'est la vie. I just don't think I believe in that anymore. And I think that God is probably active, and maybe if we asked for 3 confirmations, like, maybe he would give them. But I also think there's a lot of harm in clinging to these kind of theological beliefs that, like, God didn't really, like, maybe intend for us to have, or seeing scripture or certain things so utterly black and white that God was, like, in my opinion, like, we're supposed to walk every day doing our best, right? If God is goodness, okay, we need to try to walk in that goodness and be the best that we can be. And I now am at the point where I also define calling differently. Like, I'm not so convinced anymore that calling is this one thing God has made you for, that you have to, like, do your best to pray to find and then obey once you find it. No, I really don't think that. And again, I'm not even sure where you can find that scripturally. In my opinion, like, calling is just love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. What is the other one? Seek justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God. That's calling. And if what you're doing in life, or what I am doing in life, is that, am I loving God to the best of my ability, with the best my mind can comprehend, with the best that my heart can feel, with the best that my body can do? Am I loving my neighbor in that same way, to my best ability? And if I am, no matter what I'm doing, no matter if I'm laying down with a POTS episode, no matter if I'm so depressed I shut myself away and can't talk to anyone, no matter if literally anything, no matter if you're a cashier, no matter if I'm doing this podcast, no matter if I were a missionary overseas, if I'm doing those things with the fullest amount of love possible towards the God I understand and towards my neighbor, then I am following my calling. Because God has called all of us, God has called all of humanity, God has called all people to the same thing. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. Love justice, dude. Seek justice. Do mercy. All this, like, that. It's like, I think we just complicate things, dude. I think we like to, like, pick certain scriptures and build this whole, don't build a church around it. Seriously, we do that. We build churches around these things like confirmation and calling, when it's like, God, I feel like God made it so easy and simple for us, especially when Jesus came and was clearing some stuff off, wiping some things away. I feel like he was really trying to make it so completely and utterly simple. And we overcomplicate things. And that can have devastating effects. Like, for years, I remember, guys, I literally have the flag of the country that I wanted to go to right in front of me. And it's huge. It's beautiful. It's on my wall. It's so pretty. And, like, people's lives are completely transformed and changed by theology. And to the extent that, like, I remember being in my bedroom, like, 2022, I graduated through now, but mostly, like, you know, maybe 2022 through 2024, maybe those 2-3 years later, just feeling so incredibly lost, feeling so utterly devastated, and, like, I was disobeying. Like, I was disobeying and doing the wrong thing. All because I didn't know what to do. I was being diagnosed with chronic illness, and I was getting medication, and I was trying to recover and get into remission. And it's like, guys, I haven't even flown a plane, not flown a plane, but like been in a plane since before the onset of my symptoms. And I can't explain how much of me was wrapped up in this, what I thought and truly was convinced was God's voice. And then when chronic illness came, it completely changed me as a person. And I'm not saying that now my identity went from missionary to chronically ill, because that's not how it should be. Your identity, at the end of the day, okay, identity is a hot topic. My personal opinion right now is that you are freaking loved. Like, Christian or not, you are loved by God, by people. You are loved by yourself. You are loved. And if you don't think you love yourself, you're living right now. So at the end of the day, I think that's the core of who we are. Whether we believe that or not, we are loved. And when we, I don't know, it's just like, my identity had to be pulled out of, like, oh, you're a missionary. You're going to be following this specific God will that God has for your life. It's having to become something completely different now that, like, I don't have the energy I used to, guys. Like, I can hardly work a part-time job amount of hours. And especially during the summer, and funny fact, where I was gonna go, it's like summer all the time, my symptoms are so bad, dude. What I want you to know, as someone listening who's chronically ill, if you thought you were going to be a missionary, if you thought you were called to work in the hospitals, if you thought you were called to be a foster parent, if you thought whatever it is that you were so convinced and passionate about, and you put your whole, like, education into, thousands of dollars into, a decade into, like, whatever that is, I want you to know that you are not a failure for not being able to pursue that anymore. You are not lost. You are not disobeying God. You are not in rebellion. You are not Jonah running away from Nineveh. You are a child of God. You are loved. That is who you are. And no matter how your ability changes, that is who you are. That is who I believe God sees you to be. That is who I see you to be. That is who I believe you should see yourself to be, is utterly loved. And I want you to know that no matter how your ability has changed, if you have to sleep for 14 hours a day and are only awake that rest of the time, I'm not doing that math right now, if you can only be outside for 2 hours of the day, if you can't stand up for more than 15-minute period, if you can't sit in an office chair for more than 45 minutes, like, if you can't walk, like, whatever it is that you're not able to do anymore, you are not a failure for that. You are not in rebellion to God. You are not gaslighting yourself to be sick so that you can't work a full-time job, or so that you can't go do the scary thing you believe God called you to do. Like, sometimes life is just hard, okay? Sometimes people get sick. And I want you to know that it's not your fault. It's not your fault. You're not lost. You're not hopeless. You're not aimless. And you taking care of yourself, do you know that a caretaker is a full-time job? Like, people are literally paid to go take care of sick people and elderly people and disabled people. Like, it is literally a full-time job. And so if you have to take care of yourself as a full-time job, I want you to know that that's enough. You are valued in that, and that is enough. And I really hope for you that someday you will believe that. I really hope someday you will truly and utterly, to the core of who you are, know that your ability does not define you. And know that your calling is to love God and love others. And I would also say love yourself. Sometimes the best way to love God is by stewarding our body. Sometimes the best way to love our neighbors is by taking care of ourselves first so that we can be there. Because if our energy level is so low that we can only have capacity for a few conversations in a day, for you to stay home and stay in bed and take care of yourself so that that night you can have one phone call conversation with your friend going through a hard time, you are doing the will of God. Okay? And I'm not God. I could be wrong. Disclaimer. But I really believe that. So I guess I'm just so passionate about this because not only do we live, I think, in a country that, for better and for worse, really values productivity and hard work. And that's good. That's good. But I think we overvalue it to the point that we make that, whether it's being a missionary or whatever fill in the blank career that you do or want to do, like, we make that who we are. And then when it's all stripped away and our bodies and our minds have limited ability, we now feel like we've lost ourselves. We feel like we don't mean anything. We feel like we are disobeying God. And I want you to know that I genuinely don't believe that. Not for a second. And listen here, buddy. Okay, Christians with chronic illnesses, I'm talking to you Christians out there who are chronically ill. God knows your heart. God knows your body better than you do. So you can gaslight yourself away, saying that you're lazy, saying that you're taking advantage of the system, saying that you just don't want to work a full-time job, saying that you just don't want to go do this thing that God called you to do, whatever. Stop. I highly doubt you listening are in rebellion against God. Our bodies are probably actually in rebellion against us. And those are two different things. Okay. All of this to say that you are loved. You are loved. And also, some theology out there be whack. Okay. And maybe not. Again, if you're Pentecostal charismatic, you believe in confirmation, all the more to you. That's okay. I'd love to hear your opinions, thoughts, disagreements. Seriously, feel more than free to comment below. But I really hope that you were able to accept the person that you are now. And I hope I am too. And I really hope that we're able to be content in what we can do now. If all I can do is once a week talk into a camera for an hour and it make one person out there feel seen, or even just myself, isn't that the will of God too? Okay. Thanks for listening to my story. I appreciate it. Spoiler alert, I'm not in the Middle East. I'm in the US. I still have POTS, and I still have depression, and it's still hard. And every day, I wonder, am I where I'm supposed to be? Is this where our values should lie? And I think that's okay. I think that's just the journey of life. And I think Jesus gave us his Holy Spirit to be present with us in that journey. I don't think he's shaming us for where we're at in our health journey. I don't think he's condemning us for our amount of faith or doubt. I don't think he's ashamed of our bodies. I don't think when I'm laying in bed, because it's hard to get up, because I'm dizzy, because I'm nauseous, because I can't tell if my body needs to get up or sit down or lay down or whatever, I don't think he's disappointed. I think if Jesus is truly as gentle and lowly as he said he was, and as history says he was, then he wouldn't be disappointed. What he'd probably do is lay right down next to you. Okay. I'm done now. Thanks for sticking around. Let me know if you have any comments or questions about my story. And maybe I'll do another segment kind of regarding where I am now, talking about, chronic illness and this podcast and how that came about to be. But until then, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. If you would like to get involved, please see the links below. We've got a Patreon. We've got a Discord group. We've got a Facebook group. We've got all of our social media. And guys, guess what? If you see the website link below, it is our new website. And guys, I think it looks so cool. Go check out our website. It has all the links and information you could need and extra resources for other chronic illness Christian ministry organization things. So yes, please feel free, get connected. And of course, if you would like to support me and my husband as I try to benefit our financial situation some by doing this podcast, feel more than free to go to our website, see ways to give there, join our Patreon for some fun benefits, like I hear there's stickers and exclusive episodes, and maybe in the future merch like t-shirts. So yeah, get involved. We'd love to have you around. Okay, love you. Bye. Thank you so much for being a part of the Christians with Chronic Illnesses community. Please remember to follow, rate, and subscribe to the show. You can also follow us on our socials at CWCI Podcast. And if you're interested in sharing your story, please email us at cwcipodcast@gmail.com. If you are interested in contributing to the production of Christians with Chronic Illnesses, please see the show notes below for subscriptions starting as low as $1 a month, or email us for a more direct way to give. This show is hosted and produced by Ellie Sprague, and our incredible logo, thumbnail, and overall CWCI artist is Brianna Middleton. This show is intended for entertainment and encouragement purposes only. Please talk to your doctor before trying anything you hear on this show. Until next Monday. I present to you The Supernatural Case of an Accidental Time Traveler by my husband, Paul J. Trumba. It's a super interesting book. I'm not even much of a reader, but I read through this thing pretty easily. It's pretty large print, and it's about 500 pages. You can find it on Amazon. It's about Lou Barrett, who suddenly finds himself in, London in the 1800s. He has no idea how he got there, and he goes on to form a really hilarious and cute relationship with a witch, a wizard, and a brawler, and they go on to fight supernatural evils together. I highly recommend. It's definitely for mature readers, but it's a really good book, and you can find it on Amazon. Again, that's The Supernatural Case of an Accidental Time Traveler by Paul J. Trumba.